Greetings, members. My name is Lincoln Snyder, and I'm president of the National Catholic Educational Association. And I'm here today with my friend, the Reverend Peter Stravinskas. Father, how do you do?
Very good. Yourself?
Doing great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to share a little bit about your background with our attendees. Father Peter was born in Newark, New Jersey. Attended Catholic parochial elementary and secondary schools. He is a graduate of Seton Hall University with degrees in classical languages and French. He has a Master of Arts in School Administration, also from Seton Hall, Master's in Biblical Theology from the Immaculate Conception Seminary, a Doctor of Philosophy in School Administration from Fordham, and also Licentiate of Sacred Theology from the Pontifical Faculty of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. In addition to his academic credentials and experience in ministry as a Catholic priest, he has taught and administered Catholic educational institutions throughout his career, including elementary, secondary, university, and seminary schools. He's been a professor of education and theology at Gonzaga, Georgian Court, at St. John's, at Seton Hall, at Redemptoris Mater Seminary, Holy Apostles Seminary, and others. And he is incredibly engaged in the health and support and Catholic identity of our Catholic schools. So, Father, such a blessing to have you. And what's really exciting today, we're talking about a conference that you offer every year for pastors in support of their Catholic schools.
Yes, this is round 9 for it, and it's amazing how it really has taken off. We probably have had about, I want to say 45, 50 dioceses that have sent bishops, priests, or seminarians to the seminar, and 4 or 5 different religious orders, and we have had very, very good results from it. Good feedback, and the fact that there are a lot of what I call recidivists who keep coming back year after year. There is one priest, I think, who has been at 8 of the 9 sessions, and this time around, we're having it for the 3rd time now in Palm Beach at Our Lady of Florida Retreat House from July 11th to July 13th. So it starts in the afternoon of that Tuesday, the full day on Wednesday, and about 2/3 of a day on Thursday. And we have a number of our presenters from previous sessions, but also a number of new ones, because we're trying to branch out into some other areas that priests have told us they want some help with. We're very happy that we're going to have, once again, Bishop Daly of Spokane, who is the chairman of the Bishops' Committee on Catholic Education, who himself was a high school teacher and principal before becoming a bishop. And Mary Pat Donahue from the Bishop's Office in Education in Washington, and a number of seasoned pastors. And this time also, we're working on trying to give priests an idea of how they can help form faculty members. Mm-hmm. The documents from Rome consistently talk about the need for ongoing formation of faculty. And as I frequently point out, in the days when we had our faculties were predominantly religious, there was a built-in formation system. And even when I was in grade school, there were lay teachers, but a lay teacher was paired up with a religious. And so there was an informal but very effective process of formation of lay faculty. And so we have to be much more intentional about that now. And I think this is one area in which the priest in particular has an awful lot to offer. And whether that's once a month in an ongoing formation program, or studying a particular document together, or a book, helping faculty in that regard, but also being present to faculty. Sometimes we think of the priest's role in the school as being almost exclusively with the children, but there's much more than that. There's the faculty administration and the parents of the students as well.
That's great. What I enjoyed about the conference, Father, having attended 2 years ago, was that it was very robustly attended by priests, and though you had some lay partners like yours truly invited to present and participate in the conversation. Really, the focus is on the priests and helping them develop their leadership as the owner or leader of a Catholic school, and not just for the parochial world, but you also had good participation rather from priests who are working with the secondary schools.
Yes, and that's an area that has been almost forgotten in the past 20, 30 years. The high school that I went to was a very, very small high school. It was brand new at the time, but we had 4 priests on the faculty. That school is now about 750 students, and there's no full-time priest. And where the priest does exist, in all likelihood, he's the only cleric on the faculty. And so there's not someone that he can bump up against with his ideas or problems. And so the importance of having this kind of a support system, which is one of the reasons why a year and a half ago, we also established an association for priests and full-time high school work. And again, Bishop Daly has been extremely supportive of that because from his own experience of being a high school teacher and administrator. And also, we have the wonderful program that with Pontifex University for a master's or a doctorate in Catholic school administration, both for clergy and laity. So that's been very, very helpful. And you mentioned about having a number of priest presenters. Where possible, I've tried to have priests making these presentations because, frankly, we can say things to each other that doesn't come off as threatening. I always say priests and teachers are very similar. They hate to be evaluated, but in this instance, I can say something that might be a little tender territory for a layperson to go into. But we also have, wonderful lay presenters. We're going to have a session this time on establishing a liturgical music program for the school. Last year we did one on art, this time also on literature. So these very specific areas that are areas that I think are important for growth. So where a school is good, to make it even better, and particularly emphasizing the Catholic cultural reality. It would seem to be a great shame if a boy or a girl went through 12 years of Catholic school and hadn't been introduced to Catholic culture and civilization. And let's face it, Western civilization became what it was precisely because of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, so Father, and that's raises a great question. When pastors come to you and talk to you about the program, what are their primary concerns, or what are some themes you hear from them when they're looking for support and understanding how to better support the Catholic identity or Catholic culture of their school?
Well, I always say I'm a great believer in what I call niche marketing. And I think there are 2 niches for today's Catholic school. The first is it has to be unabashedly, authentically Catholic. If it's not that, there's no reason why a parent would spend $5,000, $10,000 for a cheap imitation of the public school down the block. And then secondly, it has to have very high academic standards, specifically emphasizing the whole Catholic cultural situation. And I think pastors, particularly pastors in suburbia, are often confronted with people saying, well, the local public school is really very, very good. We've discovered, of course, that's not even true. But in point of fact, let's take it as a given. If that's the case, then we have to be even better. And that is, challenging standards, top flight faculty and administration, and again, being unembarrassed about tooting our own horn. I think sometimes Catholic humility gets in the way. Oh, we don't want to sound like we're promoting ourselves and prideful. It's not pride. That Fulton Sheen always said humility is truth. And so let's be honest about what we have to offer. And God knows other educational institutions are not shy about it. And sometimes with no small amount of, well, puffing, to say the least.
Indeed. And another important aspect of being humble, but also not hiding the lamp under the bushel, as it were, is that Catholic schools have always depended on the broader community for their sustainability. In other words, and you've spoken to this before in our conversations, Catholic schools, as an outcome of Catholic law, are not just an investment of the parents who are expected to pay 100% of the tuition costs for their students, but rather an investment by the entire parish community. I mean, it seems to me that making sure pastors have support and getting that message out about why the school is such an important ministry of the parish, in the case of a parochial school, it does seem to be a very important thing.
Yeah, and I think that the average person, I always make the point. One time I was asked to preach at the weekend masses in a senior citizen parish. And someone said, well, why would you go there? I said, well, because those people had a Catholic education, which was either completely free or token tuition. And now this is time to pay back. And I get a very good response from that. They say, yeah, I am what I am because of what the Catholic schools 50 years ago did for me. And now this is their opportunity to participate in the ongoing evangelization and catechesis of a new generation. This time around also, I'm pleased finally to be able to get a priest from the Diocese of Wichita who is going to make a presentation on that wonderful program of stewardship that they have in the diocese, whereby all of the Catholic schools, kindergarten to 12th grade, are tuition free. And that goes to your point about this is the responsibility of everybody, not simply the parents of school kids.
So pastors come to you for training, and I know a lot of the pastors you've had back have gone, or they come back because they've learned, and then they see better outcomes with their schools or with their parishes. What are when they come back and tell you, well, Father, it's gone beautifully. Here's what went well for me. Like what are some of what's some of the feedback you've been getting about the changes they've been making coming back from your seminar?
Well, I would say that the first is that they have a feeling of confidence in stepping in the front door of the school. So it's not simply the man who may sign the paychecks or the one who has to raise the money, but that and this is a problem too in priestly formation. It's a source of great distress to me that so often I have to beg seminary rectors to give me an hour or two to discuss the role of the priest in the school with their seminarians. And you may remember, it was 3 or 4 years ago, that study of American seminarians that said they're very supportive of Catholic schools, unlike an earlier generation of priests, but they have had no training in it whatsoever. They feel insecure. And so I think that's one of the first things is these priests now feel that they do have something to offer. Secondly, many of them have talked about the fact that that confidence in the whole product of Catholic education has enabled some of them to push enrollment in such a way that they're building extensions or having second campuses of their schools. And I know that Father John Belmonte, who's the superintendent for the Diocese of Venice in Florida, recently told me that every one of his schools has a waiting list, and that he probably will have to build, open 3 or 4 more schools in the foreseeable future. Well, that's a wonderful problem to have, but for it to be successful, the priest has to be on board with it, and I think the priests who are quote graduates of our program have that ability. Secondly, they have they've been able to be a part of faculty development, of parental involvement. This is another whole area that I think needs tremendous attention. I think most teachers would tell you that they think that this generation of parents don't know how to parent. And that's largely because they weren't properly parented. And so it's not simply a matter of teaching Johnny and Janie what they need to know in the classroom, but helping parents reinforce what we're doing at home. Another area that I think pastors have found helpful is getting parents on board with some kind of a covenant agreement, saying, here's our philosophy of education. Do you agree with it? And if you do, sign on board that you're going to support this, because it's very unfair to children that they're told in school that there's a serious obligation to go to mass on Sunday, and their parents don't take them. I think most priests will tell you some of the saddest confessions you hear are little kids. I didn't go to mass on Sunday for the whole month. Why? My mommy won't take me. That's not a second grader's or a third grader's fault, but it's putting the child in a very, very untenable situation. The opposite of what happens very often, if you have a child coming from a devout Catholic family, there is no Catholic school, and the child is in a government school where there's a disconnect from the other side. So mommy and daddy are saying one thing, and that's contradicted in the school environment. And always, I mean, starting with John Coleman at the University of Chicago, saying the great success of the Catholic school is precisely the unity between the home and the school, so that there's not this psychological dissonance that children experience.
That's raises another great question, Father. And it seems to us that in many ways we're in a new evangelical age, and we've been talking about this since St. John Paul II really invited us to a new evangelization. But we see this in our numbers now with Catholic schools. The 22% of our families in Catholic schools nationally aren't Catholic, and a number of our Catholic families aren't perhaps as observant as we would like to invite them to be. There's of course that is a change culturally from us where we were 50 years ago when 96% of our students were Catholic. But there's also a real opportunity in that, I think, to bring new families into the faith if we're intentional around our evangelization. So what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the upsides of the so-called pandemic. We got numbers of new students into the schools, some non-Catholic, some just marginal Catholic families. But pastors have repeatedly told me that with the new children that came in at that time, they had to play sacramental catch-up ball. So you had second, third, and fourth graders who had never gone to confession or first communion, or older children who hadn't made their confirmation. But most interestingly of all, a number of pastors who talk about the fact that they had to do, and were pleased to do, convalidations of parents' marriages. Mm-hmm. Now that the children were in a Catholic environment, this was a further motivation for parents to get themselves right with God and with the church. So it's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, the church has always understood this. You get the children, you get the parents, and it is a family affair, and it works best when there is that cooperation and reinforcement coming from both directions.
Absolutely. And for our older kids, you and I have discussed this before, that you've advocated for example, high schools considering having confirmation programs within the high school because that's where the children are. And any thoughts on high school evangelization? And
Sure. Well, our Catholic Education Foundation, as you know, we do the Catholic identity assessments of schools, both grade schools and high schools. And in one high school, the school had 72% of the school population was non-Catholic. Mm-hmm. And it was a great deal of interest on a part of a number of students, large number of students, who wanted to become Catholic. And the diocese wouldn't allow the school to run an RCIA program. And they said it had to be parish-based. Well, the kids didn't get their faith from the parish. They don't know the parish, huh? And if you throw these kids into a parish environment where they know nobody and nobody knows them, and in all likelihood, they're the youngest people in the group by 10, 20 years sometimes, they just fall off. Mm-hmm. And so the principal of the school and the superintendent of the diocese asked me if I would put a memo together for the ordinary explaining why it would be important to have this kind of a program in the school for potential converts. Just parenthesis, also that for non-Catholic kids, a special track for religion class. If our students have come through 8 years of Catholic elementary school, presumably they should be at a higher level than someone who knows nothing about the Catholic faith. And so to put them all in the same group doesn't make sense. At any rate, the bishop was convinced that this made some sense. And that school and others in that diocese have now a program for RCIA within the structure of the high school. And this one school in particular, the student who's interested in the faith has two sponsors in the process, a student sponsor and a faculty sponsor, who commit to going to mass with that student every week, to going along with the particular instruction in the faith, the academic information. And then one is a sponsor for the student's baptism and the other for his confirmation, which is a wonderful way to integrate everybody into the process.
No, that's excellent. Now, another audience, Father, that I noted at the seminar, and just for our viewers who might be dropping in now, I'm speaking with Father Peter Stravinskas of the Catholic Education Foundation. We're talking about the seminar that they're going to be offering this summer, entitled The Role of the Priest in Today's Catholic School. That's going to be from July 11th to 13th at Our Lady of Florida Spiritual Center in North Palm Beach, and we'll have information in the show notes. So thank you for that check-in, Father. But so my question that I had was about our international priests. I was impressed by the number of priests from abroad that were there participating. And I know that Catholic education in America is a little bit different than it is in a lot of other countries. What kind of feedback do you get from our international priest friends that join you at the seminar?
Well, we've had some priests from the UK, and of course the situation is very different there because there's almost total funding of Catholic schools, but that also presents some problems at the same time. The situation in Canada is almost desperate in terms of Catholic identity, precisely because the bishops and the priests have no control over the Catholic schools. And poor Cardinal Collins in Toronto was under siege for his whole time as the ordinary, trying to either maintain or recapture some Catholic identity. But the international priests have uniformly said how impressed they are with the vitality of the Catholic schools in this country, and that it's not limited to sort of a throw-on religion class with the rest of the curriculum. And some of them, though, a number of the African priests have come from situations where there's one priest who belongs to the Piarist Fathers, and he was their vicar for education in sub-Saharan Africa, where they have a couple hundred schools and priests involved on a regular basis. And so he had a lot to offer in the program. I think that's the other point, is that this is not a one-way street. Somebody from the front of the room giving out the data, but there's a great deal of sharing among the various priests that are present, because and the networking, to use the jargon, that occurs at meals, at social gatherings, and so forth. And it's good for a priest to know that, gee, the priest from Santa Rosa has had a similar problem that I have, and here's how he dealt with it. So you're not alone in the struggle.
And looking forward, Father, so it's been running for 9 years. Looking forward to the next 9 years or 10 years. Obviously, Catholic education has evolved a lot over the last 20 years. You edited a book for National Catholic Educational Association that summarized or compiled 120 years worth of documents around Catholic education, available on our website. But looking forward over the next 10, do you have any sense of being able to read the tea leaves, as it were, as to where we are headed, what gives you hope, and then where you really think we need to redouble our efforts?
Yeah, I think either we're going to be very seriously engaged in those two niches that I mentioned, Catholic identity and serious scholarship, or we won't be in business.
Mhm.
And again, it goes back to the simple capitalist market economy. People are not going to pay for what isn't worth the money. But I'm very hopeful about it because I think the teachers we have today are very engaged. The young priests are extremely interested in the school apostolate. And I think parents have come to understand that Catholic schools are more necessary today than they ever were. And because the so-called public schools, the government schools, they're not simply neutral in terms of religion now. There's active hostility, and the whole culture is changed. It's even from 20 years ago. Things that we would have considered total lunacy 20 years ago are now operational terms of a discussion in terms of how to rear children and so on. So I think that I see a bright future, but it very much depends on leadership and the old saying, personnel is policy. So the importance of having the right priest in play, who in turn is involved with an administrator who knows what he or she is doing, and who together form a faculty that everyone's on the same page. You can't have people going in, 10 people going in 12 different directions, and there has to be unity in a faculty. And once again, I think that's a primary responsibility of a pastor, is to be that source of unity with the parish community at large, and specifically within the parent community of the school.
Excellent. And at this time, I think this is a good segue, Father. We have a video clip from a pastor who is in the process of building a school. And so perhaps you want to introduce the clip. We'll play it, and then we'll come back to wrap up our conversation.
The priest in question is Father Gregory Beerbaum from the Diocese of Colorado Springs, who himself has come to, I think, 2 of our previous workshops. And he's in the process of a capital campaign for a new church, an adoration chapel, and a Catholic school for the first time in the history of the parish. And he brought me in during Lent to preach at the weekend masses on the whole project. And I was significantly impressed by a couple of things. One, I talked about the fact that, the high percentage of practicing Catholics are those who went through the Catholic school system. And then I said, well, actually, let's have a show of hands here. And at the 5 weekend masses, I would say 85 to 90% of the people at every mass raised their hands for having gone to Catholic schools themselves. And then secondly, on that Sunday night, we had a kind of discussion, information session on the potential for the school. A couple hundred people turned up on a Sunday evening who are just incredibly interested and supportive of the idea of the parish having a school. So Father Beerbaum, as we speak right now, is leading a pilgrimage in the Holy Land, but he sent us this little audio clip expressing his support for our summer seminar for priests.
Excellent. Well, let's play that now.
Hi, this is Father Greg Beerbaum. I'm pastor of St. Mark Catholic Church in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. And we're in the process of hopefully going to be building a new elementary school and someday maybe a high school, all in the classical curriculum mode. But because of that, I have for quite a long time had a very keen interest in Catholic education. I had a spiritual director who was a superintendent of Catholic schools for his diocese. And we had a number of conversations in which he said, a priest can give a 10 or 12 minute homily, and that's great, but it can't possibly compete with the world and all the messages that come from the world and so on. He said it takes a school, and not just any school, but a good Catholic Orthodox school that's very solid in the faith. And so that stuck with me. And as a result of that, I have attended 2 of the conferences that Father Stravinskas and his fine people have put on. And while I have a master's degree in religious education and catechesis and Catholic theology, in addition to my seminary training, these conferences are very good in that they are practical. They're good for networking. They have wonderful speakers. The talk topics are very helpful, and they're very broad. There are just a wide variety of things that you can learn and that are very encouraging, whether you have a school currently and are looking to help it grow and do better, or like me, if you're thinking about founding a school. It's just a wonderful opportunity, and I would highly encourage you to consider attending it. Father Stravinskas and his people just do a really wonderful job. So again, just happy to come to you in this brief way, but to be strongly encouraging of this conference. So I will be praying for you in your discernment, but do consider attending. May God richly bless you all.
Thank you so much for that. Welcome back. So again, we're here with Father Peter Stravinskas of the Catholic Education Foundation, and we're talking about the seminar they hold for priests every year called The Role of the Priest in Today's Catholic School. And this year it's from July 11th to 13th at Our Lady of Florida Spiritual Center in North Palm Beach, Florida. We will have links in the show notes below. So Father, any final thoughts as we wrap up our conversation here?
No, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to share these ideas with NCEA members. I know the last 2 webinars that we did got good traction out of it, and actually even got a number of speaking engagements as a result. So let's hope it works as well this time. And again, thanks for all your support, Lincoln.
Oh, thank you, Father. And we, for NCEA as the Association for the Schools, opportunities for us to connect with our pastors is always welcome. There is no replacement for the pastor's leadership in the overall mission and success of the school. So we're just very encouraged by the seminar and by all of the engaged pastors who support it. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, again, I'm Lincoln Snyder, president of the National Catholic Educational Association, and we've been here with Father Peter Stravinskas. Father, thank you so much. God bless.
You too.